Welcome to segment 2, Gold and Black Live. The guy that's always gracious with his time, especially when he's about to head into, I don't know, buzzsaw, gauntlet, whatever you want to call the Big Ten schedule in volleyball. But Dave Shondell joins us, Gold and Black Live. The Boilermakers take on Minnesota tonight, 8 p.m. Game that will, it's sold out, as I think every Big Ten match has been for the last 3 years in Beelan Court. But if you can't get to, if you're not going to the match, you can watch it on the Big Ten Network. And the Boilermakers also on ESPN2 on Sunday, I believe, when you go to Iowa at 1 o'clock. One thing at a time in the Big Ten. You got one serve at a time, I think, is the way you have to play. But talk about, your team started 9-1. It's what, the 7th straight year that you guys have started with one loss or better. Pretty impressive start, and yet maybe the best is yet to come with this team, but it's going to have to deal with a tough Big Ten.
Yeah, we're happy to be 9-1. We're putting a relatively new team on the floor, as you know, Alan. 7 really good players are gone. 6 that played regularly have graduated or graduated again, because we had 2 super seniors in Caitlin Newton and Jenna Otek that picked up their 2nd degree, and they're out doing their thing now. And then we also had 4 graduate on time, and then 1 transfer. So 7 really good, valuable people that we leaned on heavily are gone. So I think a lot of people felt like, oh boy, this is going to be really difficult, and it has been difficult because we've had to put people on the floor that have not played a lot of volleyball on match night. They've been in our gym for a while. We have a veteran crew. We've got 2 fifth-year transfers. One, Hannah Clayton, came in from Iowa, and she started in the middle for us. One, Grace Ballensiefer, came in from Northern Illinois and has filled a valuable role for us. And then we have a good group of seniors. So we have people that have played a lot in our gym with those transfers added onto that, but not a lot on match night. And so you never know what to expect, but so far they've responded really well. And we've won some close sets, which is the key to success in any season, is winning the close ones. And so far we've done that. We'll need to continue to do that as we start this weekend in Big Ten play.
You've been around the block a time or 2 or 3 as a coach. Leadership is an important thing when you replace 7 people that have been such a big part of your program. Yeah. And I know we talked in the summer about, you thought this team could be better than people thought, but a work in progress. What about the leadership of even some of your younger kids, younger players that are really talented? Do they provide some of that to just by their skill? I'm talking to the Raven Colvins, the Eva Hudsons on down the line. How does that chemistry work for you?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous young people in our gym. I mean, that's what we try to recruit. You don't always get it, exactly the way you want it when you're out recruiting, because you have such a short window to make decisions on people. You don't get to know them as well as you'd like. But I think it starts with Maddie Skimmerhorn, who has been on the floor some for us the past couple of seasons. Now she steps into a big role as our libero. And I think she is our go-to leader at this point in time. You can see it every day in practice. You can see it on the floor on match night. Off the court, she does a lot of that work for us and bringing this team together. Volleyball is a sport of cohesion. You don't have a lot of time to make decisions. It's a contact sport. You're not catching the ball and holding on to it for a while and then giving it to somebody else. So you have to know each other very well and know what to expect and trust each other. But she has been probably the person that has been most in control. You talked about Raven Colvin, only a sophomore, but Raven Colvin is certainly a leader on this team. She leads by her work ethic. When things are not going the way that they should, she's going to speak up and get people's attention and change their attitude and their behavior a little bit. That probably doesn't surprise you. But I think collectively we're getting it from a lot of people. Meg Renner is working hard. Your setter is always going to be somebody that's going to be looked at for leadership. Right now, she's just trying to make sure she knows how to run the show on our team as far as who to set the ball to and how to set the ball to each particular person and do her job. But she's also evolving as a leader as well. And then those 2 players that came in, the transfers, who've got 4 years of starting at their respective schools, are also providing a lot for us. So I'm happy with them. And then I go right down to those 3 outside hitters that are seniors, which is Maddie Chin, Maddie Cook, and Emma Ellis. They're not loud in how they They lead, but they do it in an effective manner. So I think we've got that aspect pretty well covered. That should not be a problem for us as we move forward into this tough Big Ten season.
Well, the leadership also starts from a coaching staff that's very established. The kids know what they're going to get from you guys, and that has been a trademark of your program over the years. All right, you owe the Golden Gophers one or two or three. I think you haven't beaten them at home since 2015. Talk about them. I think they come in at 5-3, but they've lost to number 1 Texas, number 5 Stanford, and I think also to Pepperdine was ranked at the time. What outside of a very talented outfit ranked 8th in the country, what's the challenge will they be specifically to you guys tonight?
Well, if they had blue bloods in volleyball, Minnesota would certainly be one of them.
Yeah.
They've been in several Final Fours in the last 5 to 10 years and always in the Elite Eight. They're a well-established program with a former Olympic gold medal coach, Hugh McCutcheon, that runs that program. So they're going to be solid. They have a few moving parts, kind of like we do. They graduated a kid named Samady, who was probably the best player in the country a year ago. And she got a ton of sets, kind of like Caitlin Newton did for Purdue. And so now they got to figure out who's going to take up that slack that is there. But they have 2 of the nation's number 1 recruits in their starting lineup. 2 outside hitters, Landfair out of Chicago, and Wooker, who's out of near Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And they're both high profile, high flying, big time attackers on the left side. They got a returning player named Wenis out of Texas that was listed as one of the top 10 returners in Big Ten play. They got a setter out of Newcastle, Shaftmaster, that is the most offensive player as a setter in the Big Ten. And their middles are kind of a work in progress, but they're getting better. They've got 6'7" Carter Booth, who's Calvin Booth's daughter that played basketball at Minnesota. So they have a lot of everything. I just think that it's early. You got to remember, we've only played 4 weeks of volleyball. And so not everybody is in top form yet. I would like to think that by playing in our gym, which is tough to play in, it gives us a little bit of help when we're playing a team that is as good as Minnesota. We feel like we have a match in us that can win tonight. So, we're looking forward to it. We know our crowd will be here. We know our students will be loud. But at the end of the day, our athletes got to play, and we got to follow a game plan and make adjustments during the course of the match.
How much in scouting, from a scouting perspective, obviously you've got tape on in volleyball is a strategic game. You have to, is it a game of a coaching staff figuring out what you want to exploit and then trying to match your talent to that? And is that is scouting report really come into this, to your practice schedule, especially when you have those short, 2 days in between games? How does that work in your shop? What do you try to do from a scouting perspective to give the team the right amount of what they need to participate against and beat?
I think there's a fine line between providing way too much and just the right amount. But we've had all week to get ready for Minnesota. And they've had all week to get ready for us. You know that they're going to try to do their very best to slow down Eva Hudson and a few others, and we have to do the same thing. They run a very fast offense. They're setting the ball to their pin hitters at a really, really high tempo. So we've had to prepare for that. We've had to spend some time at, trying to block a faster set. We don't want to lose our minds over it, because at the end of the day, when you set the fast ball, it limits the amount of shots you can hit. Okay. You can't go up and just pick your shots because the ball's being thrown out there so fast. You're just trying to get your hand on that ball as quick as possible. But scouting is a big part of volleyball. I mean, they've played 8 or 9 matches, and the only thing is their lineup that they'll use tomorrow has only been intact for the previous 2 matches. The Wooker kid had a bad ankle, didn't play until last weekend, and but she had like 28 kills and 55 swings, so she's already in top form. But we're gonna be well prepared. We just hope that our players can kind of respond to what we want them to do. We do have some experience in the middle blockers. That's where most of that relies on. What's your middle blocker going to do? How are they going to adjust to each particular rotation? And where's the ball passed? And how are they going to, then react to get out and block people? But I think that we'll be ready. I don't think that we're going to overdo it. But scouting is pretty similar to football. I mean, you better know what the opponent's going to do on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, no question. when you look at Eva Hudson's gotten a lot of, has performed at a very high level. I think she's already 4 times Big Ten Rookie of the Week or Freshman of the Week, but also has been Player of the Week as well. Talk about her development and the fact that maybe she's your new rising star in a team that plays well as a unit, but she's certainly made a huge impact.
But she's been 3 times. She's been the freshman of the week or newcomer of the week. And the good thing is I don't see that bothering her. Sometimes you would wonder how that might impact somebody, how it might impact the team. And she's a very humble person, but very competitive. And her drive is to be a lot more than just the newcomer of the week in the Big Ten. She's got a very high ceiling. She competes all the time. And I mention this often, but what she brings to our team that is so important is even more important than the fact that she's getting a lot of kills and she's blocking some big balls and she served really well, is she brings this grit, this toughness, this off the chart competitive nature that you don't often see in women's volleyball. But the teams that win at a high level, they've got people like that on that team, and that will spread through our team. And you can already see some of that, rubbing off on other players. So that's what I'm really excited about, is that she's bringing that nature of just not backing down to anybody. And you need that in the Big Ten, because there's a lot of great players in the Big Ten, a lot of people you read about your entire life that are playing in the Big Ten. But she's really good. She's great at seeing the block and hitting shots, and her game is really good. Probably the best freshman that we've ever had here at Purdue.
Number 3, Nebraska. Number 6, Wisconsin. We said 8th ranked Minnesota, 9th ranked Penn State, 11th ranked Purdue. You got to be ready teams like Iowa on Sunday that are dangerous. I mean, you've talked about that for years. That's always a match. It's challenging over there as well. When you talk about that competitive, that fine line competitiveness and how that shows in recruiting, without giving away trade secrets, how do you measure that? Because you need kids that fit what you're trying to do and have the skill level, obviously, but they've also got to have the Shondell edge, that, as I call it, something that fits with what you're about. Do you see that in recruiting, or do you get surprised sometimes when they get there and get to campus and you have something more than maybe you had anticipated?
The process is so fast, Alan, that you don't always have time to evaluate exactly who these people are. When the recruiting barrage starts and there's 20 top coaches on a court looking at one player, you're either going to make an offer to that kid or you're not, very, very soon. And if you don't, they're gone. So what you hope is that your culture is going to help develop that player the way that you want them to be, that they're going to become competitive. That can happen in your gym. Those things can happen. They're still pretty young when you're recruiting them as sophomores and juniors in high school. So with Eva Hudson, it was easy to see. She was a no-brainer. Other people, not as easy, but you can get a pretty good idea. And I think that's, I go back to the fact, that I taught elementary and I taught middle school and I coached young players for a while and I coached a lot of high school volleyball. So I think that you can identify a little bit more. I think I can identify with who those people are and what their track is, both physically and emotionally, but you're not always going to be 100% correct. I wish there's people in our gym right now that were tougher and competed more than they do. But everybody is in the same boat that I'm in. You got to continue to try to put practices together that are going to encourage that competitive nature, that fight, that grit, that toughness. And then you got to talk about it. And as a coach, you just can't sit back and let anybody be complacent. You can't let that happen in your gym. You got to stay on top of people.
Transfer portal, NIL, I'm not making fun of you. You don't have a lot of hair to pull out. Either do I. So it doesn't bother you from that standpoint. But talk about that. I mean, you have the highest caliber of student athletes, at least you can find in volleyball. But that's still that does enter into it. How has that maybe changed, or had you fine-tune the way that you do your program with those 2 issues and 2 challenges and two maybe positive things in the end of the day? I don't know with how this will all shake out, but how has that been for you in the sport of volleyball?
It's a fluid situation.
Okay, fair answer.
Luckily, the NIL thing hasn't been a huge impact yet on volleyball. I think what you're seeing across the board is these schools are trying to establish their football and their men's basketball programs and get them to a position, because those are the money makers. I get that. Okay. I also recognize that volleyball players are high quality for NIL. I mean, they fit the bill of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You want to, if you're going to put your money into somebody, why not put it into somebody that is in the Big Ten playing volleyball, where now they're on TV about every single match, and they're high profile, and they do what you're supposed to do. Okay.
Yeah.
How many times have you read about a Purdue volleyball player negatively in the paper, in the news, anywhere? Never. Not in the last 20 years. Okay. So I think that eventually, I know that the Boilermaker Alliance, I've had, some brief encounters with them as we try to educate each other. And I'm encouraged by what I think is going to happen with our volleyball team, and that they're going to be pretty fair across the board to all of our athletes. And I think that's exciting. But the portal and the NIL have changed college athletics forever. I'm just hoping at some point in time, whether it's the NCAA or some other organization, is going to get control and put some kind of common sense limits as to what we're going to be able to do. Otherwise, it's going to be a change that I think a lot of our fans aren't going to appreciate.
Yeah, I hear you. And this is one thing, when we get Dave Shondell on our show, we really ought to do one. And not that you're not busy in February, but Dave Shondell on the state of college athletics is always interesting and usually right. So that part is always a big part of our show. All right, Coach, good luck to you tonight and this weekend throughout the Big Ten season. We're so grateful for your time, and we'll look forward to watching your team grow and run the gauntlet, so to speak. And good luck in doing that.
Well, I really appreciate you and what you do for all of our sports here at Purdue. And I do think that Purdue loves their women's athletics, and they love all the athletics. And I just think whatever we can do to let people know what's going on is important, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Have a great match tonight and over the weekend. And we'll be back in a couple minutes. We'll be talking some Purdue memorabilia as well with Chris Pate and Tom Schotten, and somebody that Dave knows well, also Orlando Ayton. We'll talk about that. And that'll be a fun thing as well. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Gold and Black Live.